The kitchen burst with liveliness as you sang your favorite song loudly, the spatula becoming your microphone. The air filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee which you prepared for your husband Kim Taehyung, who had just returned from his office. The weather was dreary, just like your husband, whose attention was focused entirely on his laptop. He sat on the dining table, a frown creasing between his forehead. By his expression, he looked weary and stressed. Amidst a dull and tense evening, you tried to bring light and warmth with your cheerful demeanor, the way you had been trying to bring some colors in your husband's silent and boring life. Kim Taehyung, your husband of 2 months, was a laconic person. His reserved personality made him appear cold and indifferent. On the other hand, you were an outspoken and jolly person. Your bubbly personality was your charm. You two polar opposite persons were tied in an arranged alliance by your parents and his mother's best friend. He lost his parents in a fire incident when he was around 15. Since then, his mother's best friend became his family, more like a second mother to him. His quiet nature was never an issue for you because his silence spoke more than his words. The way he looked at you with adoration, the way his eyes held admiration whenever you pulled a silly stunt, or the way his eyes desperately searched for you after returning from office. These gestures, though hidden, were more affirmative than words of any language. You twirled, dancing to the beats of the music. Your gaze wandered over to him. A frown marred your face when you noticed his distressed expression. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight. He looked disturbed, and an urge to relieve his stress arose within. Come on, husband, you called out playfully, spinning towards him with an exaggerated twirl. Sing with me, dance a little. You chirped, brimming with your usual cheerfulness. Your lips curved downwards when he didn't reply, rather ignoring you as if you weren't there. But you were not going to give up. You extended your hand, poking his arm to gain his attention. Just a little bit, loosen up, hubby, unwind yourself and forget the world. You tried again, to cheer him up, to bring some elasticity in his rigid, stoic, hard life. You had succeeded every time in fixing his mood, so you were quite confident. Not in the mood, he muttered, barely looking up at you, his voice devoid of any emotion. His expression was stoic hard, something called a mix of irritation and concern. Somewhere his worry was justified. He had been working his for a project. The next day was a meeting where he would probably sign the deal and get his dream project, but then there came the issue. The presentation he prepared after working day and night got deleted accidentally. Moreover, he had no backup, no soft or hard copy, so he had to start from scratch and finish the month-long work in a single night. Too much pressure on him had turned into irritation, and then came the basic human nature. When we are irritated with one thing, every other thing irritates us to our core. You are always not in the mood. Don't you ever want to let loose and just have fun? You asked, frowning slightly, refusing to let his mood dampen yours. He let out a huge sigh, as if refraining himself from speaking something that he knew would hurt you. Later, I need to focus for now, he muttered, briefly glancing at you. But you refuse to back down. Please, husband, you work all day in your office. Spend some time with me now. You whined, pulling his arm. He let out yet another exasperated sigh and pinched the bridge of his nose as he tried to contain his frustration, which was turning into anger now. He didn't want you to be on the receiving end of it, but your antics were irking him just at the point. I think I made myself clear, he uttered, his voice drawn. The firmness of his tone made you frown. Despite him being as cold as ice, he never ever talked to you in such a way. Is everything alright? You asked, sensing the gravity of the situation. He didn't say anything and just focused back on his laptop, the frown on his forehead deepening even more. You know you can just share what's bothering you. You said, your hand reaching out to rub his arm. Do you really have to be so loud all the time? He muttered, looking up to meet your eyes. His eyes held anger. His frustration was evident by the ways Joe was clenching or unclenching with time. Your smile slowly disappeared. His words stung deeper. Loud, you repeated, feeling pangs of hurt. You were just trying to cheer him up, but it seemed like things had taken a wrong turn. Yes, loud, he snapped, closing his laptop with more force than necessary. Pushing himself off the chair, he towered over your 5.5 feet frame. With his jaw set and eyes nearly spitting fire, he looked intimidating. For a moment, you got scared, thinking he might hurt you in anger. Do you have to be noisy all the time? Can you just sit still and be quiet for a moment? Sometimes it's exhausting. He spat, running a reckless hand through his hair. His words hit you like a hard slap. It hurt you even more because you never expected him to speak to you in such a disrespectful way. Still, you somehow kept your composure, refusing to show that his words had hurt you. I'm just trying to make things lively, Taehyung. You said, your voice low and tight with the rush of emotions. This house, it feels like a morgue sometimes because you never talk, never laugh. I'm trying to fill the silence. Maybe I like the silence, he retorted, his voice rising a little bit. Maybe I don't want you to fill the serene silence with your endless chatter and loud singing. You blinked, surprised by the bitterness in his words. You wondered if he was just saying things in anger or he had these things kept hidden for long and now he was speaking what he was suppressing all the time. Endless chatter, you whispered, the concealed emotions surfacing on your face now. You looked hurt. Not everyone needs constant chatter to be happy. Sometimes you're just. He paused, the unsaid words hanging heavy in the air. Just what? You whispered, looking straight at his eyes. Annoying. He finished, his voice cold and emotionless. You stared at him, the brightness in your eyes dimming into the dullness of sadness. Perhaps he was blinded by his anger, or he wasn't thinking straight, but he didn't know the extent of the damage he had done, nor did he know about the upcoming moments where he would be left with nothing but regret. Annoying, you whispered, your voice breaking as tears pooled in your eyes. Is that all I am to you? Some noisy, annoying presence, a nuisance you have to put up with? For a moment he didn't say anything. Every passing moment in silence felt as sharp as knife, cutting deep in your heart. Don't twist my words, he muttered after a long pause. I don't have to twist them, you retorted bitterly, taking a step away from him. You have made it crystal clear how you feel. Wine. Save it, you interrupted, grabbing your coat from the chair. If I am such a bother, maybe you are better off without me around. His eyes softened as the realization dawned upon him. He tried to reach out, but before he could take a step in your direction, his phone buzzed. It was a text from his PA, reminding him about the project and the meeting scheduled for next morning. When people don't appreciate the things they have, they regret once they lose them. You muttered, holding back the tears that were threatening to fall. But he didn't hear any of your words. He was stuck, torn between his professional and personal issues. He wasn't good in dealing with such situations. He knew he would mess up things even more. Thus, he did what he always did in such situations. He collected his stuff and sprinted up to the bedroom. He neither stopped nor did he look back even once. He just ran away. You watched his retreating frame with disappointment in your eyes. He doesn't care, you whispered to yourself as you heard the door of the bedroom slam shut. I should just leave and give him the peace and silence he loves so much, you muttered, staring at your hands. You stared up at the closed bedroom door with dull, tear-filled eyes, expecting he would open the door and rush back to you to apologize and make things right. But it didn't happen. The clock kept ticking, but the bedroom room door remained closed. With a heavy heart, you wore your coat and put on your shoes. After the harsh words he had spat on you It became difficult to share the same roof as him. Thus, you decided to leave him on his own. The rain poured relentlessly as you walked aimlessly down the streets, tears mixing with the raindrops on your cheeks. The sound of your boots splashing in puddles was drowned out by the thunder above. You didn't know where you were going. You just needed to get away. The cheerful energy that usually defined you had been snuffed out, replaced by a heavy weight in your chest. The argument replayed in your mind, his harsh words echoing louder than the thunder above. You hugged your coat tighter around you, but it did little to shield you from the cold or the weight in your chest. How could he say that? After everything I had done to try and make my home with him warm and loving, he had called me annoying? You murmured, your voice trembling less due to cold and more due to hurt. When I have accepted him as he is, what is the issue in accepting me how I am? Am I really that loud? You couldn't help but ponder over his words. He had hurt you deeply. Amidst the chaos in your head, you didn't notice that you were walking in the middle of the street. The thunder roared above, startling you. You hugged yourself, the cold breeze making you shiver. That's when you noticed that you were standing in the middle of the road. Your breath hissed as a car rushed past you. You stumbled back scared. Panicked, you tried to go to the sidewalk away from the traffic. However, you didn't notice a car speeding in your direction. You froze when the lights fell on you, blinding your vision. The driver pressed the brakes, but the car skid on the wet, slippery road. And before you could react, the car hit you with great force. You fell several feet away. Your cold body hit against the hard concrete road. You felt immense pain all over your body and some liquid leaking through your head before numbness took over. The last thing you heard was the beeping of vehicles and several footsteps approaching you. Taehyung's rare, smiling face flashed in front of your eyes before darkness took over your senses. Back at home, Taehyung descended the stairs. The anger from earlier had faded, leaving behind a gnawing regret. He replayed your hurt expression over and over, his chest tightening with guilt. He had realized his mistake. He had gone too far in his anger. He sighed heavily, running his hands through his hair. He hadn't meant to say those things. He knew how much your energy meant to both of you, even if he struggled to show it sometimes. The argument replayed in his mind, each word sharper than the last. The anger that had fueled him was long gone, leaving behind a hollow pit of regret. I need to apologize to her, he whispered to himself, turning his heels towards the kitchen. To his surprise, you weren't there. He frowned and went back to look for you throughout the whole house. Disappointed, he returned to the living room. You weren't there. Your absence echoed more than your presence, reminding him about the damage he had done. The quiet, the peace of the house felt irritating. Glancing at the clock, he realized it had been over an hour since you left. His heart began to race. The rain was getting heavier and the streets were dark and slippery. Worry gnawed at his chest. The fear of you leaving him gripped his heart tightly. He was scared, scared to lose you. He didn't know how he would survive without you. He had become addicted to having you around. You had occupied him as a whole, and if you were to go, he would lose himself as well. Damn it, he muttered under his breath, grabbing his keys and a hoodie. I need to find her, he said, rushing out into the storm. I can't lose her, I just can't. They drove around the rain-soaked neighborhood, the windshield wiper struggling to keep up with the downpour. His chest tightened with every empty street he passed. Where could she have gone in this weather? He mumbled as he called your phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail each time. Come on, Ryan, he muttered under his breath. Pick up, please pick up. He parked the car and got out to start searching on foot, his hoodie doing little to shield him from the rain. His phone was clutched tightly in his hand as he dialed your number again and again, but each call went unanswered. Vian, he shouted into the storm, his voice barely audible over the pounding rain. Where are you? His heart raced as panic set in. He couldn't lose you, not like this. Please come back. I'm really sorry. He shouted in the storm, his voice cracking as his throat tightened with a rush of emotions. He was trembling now, scared that he would never be able to reach you. Just as he was about to head back to the car, his phone buzzed in his hand. Relief washed over him as he thought it might be you, but the number on the screen was unfamiliar. Hello, he answered hastily, his voice shaking. Is this Taehyung? A calm but serious voice asked. Yes, this is Kim Taehyung. Who is this? This is from the hospital. Your wife had been in an accident. She's being brought here, and we needed to come immediately. The words hit him like a freight train. His knees nearly buckled as the world around him blurred. The phone nearly slipped from his hand. An accident? I whispered, his voice barely audible. Is she okay? There was a pause before the voice replied, we need to come here immediately. Before he could speak further, the person hung up. The world crumbled around him. The rain seemed to grow louder, drowning out everything except the sound of his heartbeat thundering in his ears. His phone slipped from his hand, landing in a puddle as he sank to his knees. The rain pelted down on him, but he didn't feel it. His chest heaved as a raw, agonizing whimper tore from his throat. No, he cried, his voice hoarse. Nothing will happen to her. She will be fine. She has to be fine. Taehyung didn't waste a second. He ran back to his car, his hands trembling as he fumbled with the keys. The drive to the hospital felt like an eternity, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. He rushed to the hospital in a daze, barely remembering how he got there. When he finally arrived, he burst through the doors, his clothes dripping wet. He approached the front desk, his voice urgent. My wife, I need to see Kim Wan. She was in an accident. The nurse directed him to your room, and he halted outside. His heart was thumping wildly against his chest. He wasn't ready to face what awaited him at the other side of the door. Inhaling deeply, he pushed the door open with shaky hands. When he entered the room, his legs nearly gave out at the sight of you lying on the bed, lifeless and pale. An IV was hooked to your arm, and there was a bandage on your forehead. His chest tightened at the sight of you, so fragile, so unlike your usual vibrant self. He sank into the chair beside your bed, his head falling into his hands as tears streamed down his face. I'm so sorry, he choked out, his voice trembling. I'm so sorry for everything, Brian. His chest heaved as sobs tore through him. I'm sorry, he cried, his voice breaking. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it. Please wake up. Please. The thought of losing you made his heart squeeze painfully. Wake up, he pleaded desperately. Wake up and call me hubby again. Laugh at me. Sing your songs. Just please wake up. He reached for your hand, holding it tightly in his arm. You are not annoying. You are not noisy. You are the light in my life. And I was too stupid to say it. Please wake up. Please give me a chance to make it right. Vian, he choked out, gripping your hand tightly. It was cold, too cold. He paused, his eyes traveled to your face and then to your chest. You weren't breathing, and your body was colder than the normal body temperature. Overwhelmed with fear, he looked around. That was when he noticed a doctor and a nurse standing in the corner. They were looking at him with pity. Why isn't she replying to me? The doctor stared at him with pity and then heaved a huge sigh. When she was brought here, she had already lost a lot of blood. We tried our best, but we couldn't save her. He sat there, staring blankly at your lifeless form on the bed. His trembling hand reached out to touch your face, his tears falling freely. They are speaking nonsense, right? You are still here with me. Your words echoed in his head. When people don't appreciate the things they have, they regret once they lose them. He fell on his knees, staring at you with pleading eyes. Just once. Please talk to me just once. You can't leave me like this, okay? We had a deal, remember? You were supposed to see me with tons of grandchildren and grey hair. You said I would still look handsome. His sobs echoed in the room as he clung to your hand, the weight of his regret suffocating him. You traitor, wake up! He pressed his forehead against your hand, his tears soaking the sheet beneath it. You're not annoying, you're not loud, you're everything good in my life, and I was too blind to see it. But it was too late. You weren't alive to hear his apology. You had left him. You had gone too far, far away from his reach, somewhere where he couldn't hold you no longer. Taehyung woke up with a jolt, gasping for air. His heart was pounding like a drum, his forehead damp with sweat. For a moment, he didn't realize it was a dream. It was just a nightmare that had shaken him to his core. His hand shot out, blindly searching for you on the other side of the bed. When his fingers brushed your warm, breathing body, he let out a shaky breath he didn't realize he was holding. You stirred slightly at his touch but didn't wake. Still, you remained turned away, your body language reminding him of the unresolved tension between you two. The image of your lifeless form from his dream was burned into his mind. The overwhelming fear and relief swirled together, breaking something inside him. He couldn't hold it back anymore. Silent tears rolled down his face as he shifted closer and pulled you into his arms, pressing your back against his chest. His grip was tight, almost desperate, as if you might disappear if you let go. His face buried into the crook of your neck, and he inhaled deeply, trying to calm the storm inside him. The sudden motion startled you awake. Taehyung, you murmured sleepily, confused by his behavior. What's wrong? But all you got was his sobs as a reply. Taehyung, you said, your voice laced with concern. What happened? Are you okay? But he didn't answer immediately. He couldn't. His throat was thick with emotion, his tears soaking into your shirt. You turned in his arms, alarmed now, and cupped his face. That's when you noticed the tears streaming down his cheeks. I am sorry. He choked out, his voice raw and trembling. I'm so sorry, Ryan. For what? You are still half asleep but fully aware that something has shaken him to his core. For being cold to you, for not listening, for everything. His voice cracked and his grip tightened on you as fresh tears split. I had a nightmare. You were gone, and it was my fault. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't bring you back. Your heart softened immediately. This was a side of Taehyung you rarely saw. The stoic man who built walls around his emotions was breaking in front of you, and all you could do was pull him closer. I'm here, he whispered, your own voice trembling now as you smoothed his hair and wiped his tears. I'm not going anywhere, Taehyung. He shook his head, still clutching you as if you would disappear the moment he let go. I don't want to lose you, he admitted in a broken whisper. I don't know what I would do without you. You won't lose me, you assured him, planting soft kisses on his forehead, his cheeks, anywhere you could reach. I'm here, I'm not leaving. At that moment, he had become the same 15-year-old Taehyung who had lost his parents. He feared he would lose every person he loved. After a few moments, he calmed down a little. You pulled his head back to look at his face and gently wipe his tears. It was a stupid argument. I was mad, but that doesn't mean I would leave you, okay? But I call you something I shouldn't. I hurt you. You frowned in confusion. His talks didn't make sense to you. Called me what? It wasn't an argument to begin with. I was mad at you because you ate my ice cream, remember? You didn't say anything to me. You explained, and that was when it hit him. He had eaten your favorite ice cream, and that made you mad. He tried to apologize, but you stopped speaking to him. You didn't talk to him the entire evening, and that made him disheartened. He wasn't as unaffected as he looked from outside. He was drawn and guilt, thinking he had hurt you, but in reality, you were just throwing some tantrums to get pampered by him. Restless by your silence, he went out to buy your favorite flowers and the ice cream. But when he returned, you had already retreated to bed without saying a word to him. He couldn't help but overthink about the whole situation. He couldn't sleep. A sinking feeling of guilt and unease settled in his chest. When sleep finally claimed him, it came with darkness that twisted into a relenting nightmare. Please, from next time, do anything. Punish me in any way you want, but please never stop speaking to me. I don't say it often, but I love it when you talk to me about everything or anything. I love listening to you. You chuckled, your cheeks turning slightly red. His sweet confession brought happy tears to your eyes. You knew he didn't speak openly, but his eyes said it all. And over the little time you had spent with him, you had learned to read through him. Let's leave for now, you suggested, earning a nod from him. He shifted and rested his head on your chest, his arms coiled around your waist, holding you tightly yet gently. For the rest of the night, Taehyung held you close, his head resting against your chest, listening to the steady rhythm of your heartbeat. It was a sound he promised himself he would never take for granted. The next morning, you woke up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee and the sight of Taehyung bustling around the kitchen. He looked up when he saw you and offered a small, genuine smile, one that reached his eyes this time. Good morning, he said softly, beaming at you. Good morning, you replied, a little surprised by the uncharacteristic gentleness in his tone. He turned on some music and walked towards you. You watched as he extended a hand towards you. You looked at his outstretched hand and then back at him, raising your eyebrows questioningly. That's your favorite song, right? Let's dance. He proposed, jutting his chin at his outstretched hand. You chuckled and placed your hand on his. He coiled his fingers around yours and yanked you closer, his other hand sneaking around your waist. Your sweet giggles filled the air as you swayed with him along the beats of your favorite song.